Thereafter, the sensitized instruments of the within become subtle in him. Thereafter means, okay, let's me the before one, because thereafter and start. Even this practice of getting oneself fully conscious of the sound, uma, om, each marching into the other and getting telescoped in themselves, one into the other, is in itself a severe training for the mind at concentration. So the conscious superimpositions unfolded and again folded up, as explained above, is an equally all absorbing occupation for the entire intellectual capacity in us. So that the true practitioner, if he be sincere and regular, gains in a very short time an infinite amount of integration, both in his mind and in his intellect equipments. So this can be used as a upasana also, omkara, pranavopasana. Because here, even though that uma, when you split, it is used usually for in the mandukya, the inquiry into, right, higher, your higher self, right? So it can be used as an inquiry for the gnanam, nishtha, and also as, even before we come to the gnana, as a upasana to make our mind intellect integrated, that's what it is, and ready for gnanam. So what does it mean? Telescoped in themselves. You understood that? This is from Mandukya. Basically, Gurudev is giving some explanation from that. What is, so basically you have seen, right? So there are 4 levels, right? First foundation is the Turiya foundation. It is amatra. There is no matra. Amatra foundation. Turiya, amatra, no sound, silence. Or otherwise, the highest Turiya state, amatra. On that foundation, we have 3 more levels. The first level, the top level is what? The waking state. So here, A stands for waking state, right? That's what you've seen earlier. The akara is the jagrata avastha, the waking state. And then the consciousness associated with that is called Vishwa. Right? Akara, Vishwa, and the total consciousness associated with that Vishwa is Virat at the cosmic level. There's a Virat Purusha, we call it, right? Vishwarupa, Virat Purusha. In Purusha Suktam also. Yeah. That is Virat Purusha. At the gross level, at the gross body level, the total consciousness obtained in the total is called Virat Purusha. So, Akara, Vishwa, Virat. First level. Second level. So, imagine that. So, as the telescoping in themselves means that you have to imagine as though their A is folding into Om, U is folding into M, and then going into the silence. And then at the level of the consciousness of Vishwa, right, to what is the next level? Makara, right? Next level. Akara, Ukara, sorry. Ukara. Ukara stands for Taijasa at the subtle level. So when the dream state, it's called Taijasa. And then at the total level, the consciousness associated with that at the subtle level is called Hiranyagarbha. So Ukara, Taijasa, Hiranyagarbha. So as though telescoping is, as though it is resolving into another. It's kind of a visualization, since it is upasana, right? So is merging into u to At the third level, above the foundation, is what? The makara. Makara is called Prajna. The second is Hiranyagarbha. Prajna. Prajna in deep sleep state, the consciousness associated with that state is called Prajna. Because ignorance, right? Total ignorance. In deep sleep, nothing is there. So it's called Karana Shariram. At the individual level, Karana Shariram. The total level, the cosmic level, it's called Ishvara. Right? So Makara, Prajna, Ishvara. Right? 6 have come. And then the foundation finally is the silence. That silence means it is awareness, the consciousness, because of which even the silence is we are able to see, even because of which the silence also we are able to appreciate. That is Turiya state, the highest Brahman, what is called. Though that state is everywhere, in fact, in all these states. We are only missing it because of our preoccupation with. In the waking state, we are preoccupied with objects. Dream state, we are occupied with dreams. Different status. Our status is changing, but then my real status is the Turiya state. That is represented by the silence. After Om, that silence is there, right? So the telescoping and all that Gurudev is explaining here from that, the Pranavopasana of the Mandukya Karika, of course. So at the same time, when you're resolving means intellectually merging one into the other. You're not saying Uma. Careful. Om only you have to say. You're saying as though you'll imagine in that Om, is merging into U, Virat to Hiranyagarbha, Hiranyagarbha to Ishvara at the cosmic level, at the individual level, Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna, like that, Yoshi, that visualization. So, fourth level is what? The Turiya state, that silence. In that Om sound, the Shabda portion is Saguna Brahma. The Nishabdam, silence is Nirguna Brahma.
So there is no name for it.
That even though the name is called Turiya, that is called Amatra. That's why. Amatra. There is no Matra actually. Amatra. That is the Upasana, kind of. In Mandukya, once you have known the details, then you can practice. But Gurudev, I think, will also mention why he did that explanation. All this is not required here, he says. But it's a kind of a nice upasana. So let's move on. Thereafter, the sensitized instruments of the within become subtle in him and dare to seek the pure awareness which in the 3 grosser planes illumines the objects and sustains the mirage personalities of the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper. So all this from the same Upanishad. Mirage personalities means unreal. Unreal, mithya. See, this is also mithya. Dream is also another mithya. Deep sleep also, even though we are going into a kind of a nothingness, it is pure ignorance. Deep sleep is just pure ignorance. In Swapna and Jagrat, it is ignorance plus, even though ignorance is there, but then what plays out is the misconception, mostly. Error, mostly misconception. I am like misconception of the example, that rope and snake. So I misconceive myself as a karta, as a bhokta, as an enjoyer, as a doer. Vedanta is saying, no, you are not that. Right? That's why it's called mirage personalities. So these words are you understanding these words? These are like deep Vedanta. This is the first chapter, there is no Vedanta. But Gurudev is already giving a lot of Vedanta. First chapter is only for preparation, actually. Mirage personalities have the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper. Because deep sleep is ignorance, pure ignorance, right? So that silence between the two successive ohms is the point of concentration which the yogi attempts to merge with, right? And experience thereby in infinite contents of one split second, completely divorced from the past and entirely free from the mental slavery of the future. So that is the Turiya Avastha. To live thus dynamically free from within and from without, 1 second of human life is all that is needed to peep over the veils of ignorance and realize for ourselves eternally thereafter the true nature of the self, the Godhood. So that is for Upasana. But after that, once you have gained the Jnana, even while here in the Jagrata Avastha, you are always aware of the Turiya Avastha, which is our real nature. It's only a status. Waking status, I am this particular waker. In dreamer, dreams, dreamer. They're all statuses, different statuses. They're all dropped intellectually. What is called as Bhagatyaga Lakshana. You've seen, right? Bhagatyaga Lakshana, they call it. It's a prakriya. Which bhaga you have to drop? The unreal part. Tyaga, you're giving up the unreal portion of yourself because you have learned through Shravana Maranam from the Guru, Upadesha, right? You have learned this is all mithya. Everything is mithya. So you're dropping, not that experiencing, experiences will go on. Right? Experiences will go on. Somebody is speaking bad, I get insulted, that experience will go on, but then you are aware of the higher self. Because the Bhagat Tyaga Lakshana, you're dropping the unreal part, which is your body, the mind, the intellect. And you're fully established in the higher self, the Turiya. So this is called Pravilapana, the resolution. Pravilapana Dhyanam, they call it. So it's a nice. Continue. Here, let me do this. Here, we need not have gone into such an exhaustive treatment since the reference in the text does not justify such a complete treatment. That's what I was telling you, right? Gurudev himself is mentioning this kind of explanation is not required here, but we do so with a hope that it would help us in all our daily meditation classes. I think he's referring to the classes maybe when he was giving these discourses at that many years ago. Okay, continue. As we
have explained above, Om represents a symbol of waking, the dream, and the deep sleep states of consciousness. Since our entire life is a sum total of different experiences in these three planes, Om, the symbol, represents all this. Om as the symbol of the infinite reality that is behind the seeming multiplicity and the painful plurality. It becomes self-evident that the rishis were not illogical or deliberately mystical when they declared this fact that Om is all this entire universe. Mud is the reality. All pots of all colors, all shapes, and all sizes, irrespective of their contents or condition, are all nothing but mud. Gold is the reality behind all ornaments, be they thin or thick, be they intricate or simple, be they for the neck or the legs. They are all nothing but gold. The ocean is the reality for all the waves, be they mountainous, be they small, be they 40, be they naked, all of them are nothing but the very ocean itself. It is in this sense that Om is the idol of the reality. It has been explained in the mantra here as the symbol that represents the entire universe, experience without as objects and within as thoughts and ideas.
So the object outside and even the artha, not only the shabda, all shabdas are from Om only, a, uma. And then all Shabdas have an Artha associated with it. Right? So Om represents everything. And so we're saying Om is everything, Brahman, in that sense. Symbol that represents the entire universe. Okay. Om iti idagam sarvam. Right? That's what it is. Because words and the objects are equal only, right? So Om is a sound symbol. And without that akara, starting with the first word is ah. Anything you start, any word you have to say ah should have to come. Ah. Right? When you open your mouth, ah. When you close your mouth, between these two, oo is the all words in all the universe, in all words in the universe represented by this Om. So it is everything. Okay, continue. Then Om, next part, right? Very that we didn't do. Nandiji.
It is widely known that Om is uttered to indicate consent. The priest officiating at the sacrifice encourages his assistant with the word O Shravya.
O Shravaya.
Shravaya. Words O Shravaya. With the chanting of Om, they start their singing of the Sama verses.
Ama verses.
And with Om,
Om,
Som,
Om, Shom.
Om, Som. They recite the Shastras,
Advaryu.
Advaryu answers with the syllable Om. With Om, the chief priest Brahma expresses his essence. One permits the offering of oblation to the fire with Om. May I obtain the Brahman. With this determination, the Brahmana says Om before he begins to recite the Veda, and he does obtain the Brahman. For the purpose of the Upasana, it is necessary that the meditator, Upasaka, should be provided with some ideas of divinity and sanctity of his Upasana, or else his mind cannot be persuaded to remain in a divine attitude of inspiration, attaching itself to the Upasya, the object of contemplation. Here, the advice is given to meditate upon Om, and the teacher should provide the student with material to excite and sustain a spirit of inspiration in him.
What does the Advaryu mean?
These are the four priests, four names of each Veda has a priest name, a name of the priest for each Veda. So the group Advaryu Gana, and then Hotru Gana, Udgata, and then Brahma is the Atharvana Veda priest. He has to know all the Vedas to supervise. Actually, Atharvana Veda is not employed in the rituals, in the yajnas. That's why it's called Atharvana. Atharvana. So even when you're enumerating 3 Vedas only, you say Trayi Veda.
So
Atharvana Veda priest is called Brahma.
But so
Advaryu is Yajurveda priest. The Yajurveda Advaryu is called the group of Yajurveda priests. Advaryu Yajurveda priest. Hota Rigveda priest. Udgata Samaveda priest. Udgatrugana, because one chief priest and then 3 assistants will be there for everybody. So there will be 16 priests in a big yaga. You have to see 16 of them, and then the Yajamana and the Yajamani, 18 totally. Total 18 important people, right?
So when they're doing the big event homa,
Yes.
they'll name the main priest.
Yeah.
Like
Yes. Advaryugana. Advaryu is Yajurveda. And usually Brahma means Atharvana Veda priest. You should know all the rules. When they're chanting, if there's any mistake, he has to point out. And then there's any prayaschitta, he has to do some pranayama if they commit a mistake. But then these days, we see these priests most of them don't know maybe. So they'll put a pitam, they'll put a darba and a akshata, and then he is considered as a Brahma, as though they'll take permission from him, right? So that's what that permission, these words are. What is it? Om iti Brahma prasauti. That Brahma is there, right? He is the Brahma, the Atharvana Veda. This prasauti. They take the permission from him. Hmm? Yeah. So Anukruti means consent, right? So first they start Omitti Dadanukruti Hasmava Apyo Shravayetya Shravayanti. That Om Shravaya. It's called Praisha Mantra. O Yo Shravaya. Means invitation. Invite the devatas with Om, is saying. He is giving instructions to the assistants. O Yajurveda priest. O Shravaya. Call, use Om and invite the devatas, is saying. And Om iti Samani Gayanti. The Samaveda priest. Om iti Samani Gayanti. Ogam Shomiti Shastrani Shagam Santi. Ogam Shastrani. Shastra means not the weapons here. The Rigveda chants, if they are used without the swara, they call Shastra. So Ogam Shomiti. Om Shom. They're saying Om Shom. Those words they are using, the Rigveda priests. Advaryu Pratigaram Pratigrunati. Pratigaram. Pratigrunati. What does it mean? Is it given?
Response and recitation.
Yeah. Pratigrunati. Pratigaram is a mantra, name of the mantra actually. Here it says word of encouragement here. Pratigrunati, response. Om iti Brahma. One who sets right possible mistakes, right? The Atharvana Veda, Prasauti, expresses assent. Agnyam karoti. Prasauti means he says expresses assent, but is Agnya. He gives that command. Agnihotram. Even in regular Agnihotram, the Grihastha does. There also he has to use Om. Yeah. Should read.
The student is one who has reached the master after years of devoted pursuit of the ritualistic portion of the Vedas. He is very familiar with the scene of sacrifice, the various priests, and the words uttered by them, and so on. No student of that time could have failed to feel divinely inspired when they were reminded of a Yagnashala. Therefore, here we find the teacher is giving the student some definite ideas about the exact places in the rituals where the various priests and the officials around the sacred fire familiarly chant Om with all the priestly dignity. In the course of the ritualism, when the subordinates ask, "Shall I do the Homa or shall I start chanting?" the priest gives his consent by saying Om. Again, when a Ritvik is when the Ritvik is sleepy and misses chanting the mantras in order to encourage him and bring his attention to the chanting, the elder priest would say Om Shravaya.
O Shravaya.
O Shravaya.
O means Om only there. Short form. They didn't put.
Om Shravaya. Thus, Om is used by the chief priest not only for registering assent, Anumati, but the same sound is used for encouragement, prerana. The mantras of the Samaveda are sung to tune, and the singers of the Saman start the chanting with Om. Portions of Samaveda not tuned to music are called Shastra, and,
Oh, Samaveda. Okay.
and
I
they
thought it's
too
Rigveda.
are
Oh.
recited with an invocation as Om Shom. The presiding priest of a yajna never talks during the yajna, and he sets the sacrifice in motion by saying Om. The sacrificer authorizes the priest to start the offering of oblation into the fire, again by uttering Om. A Brahmana with the desire, let me obtain the Vedas, starts chanting the Veda with a devoted Om. Assuredly, he obtains Brahman, the theme of the Vedas, by thus giving some hints of the sacred occasions when the sound Om is used in the divine atmosphere of the rituals. The meditator gets a mental attitude of godliness and sanctity, and the chances are that he will soon develop an amount of self-integration within himself as a result of his meditation on Om.
So I think this because the Samaveda is already we have seen, right? Omiti Samani Gayanti. And then after that, Ogam Shomiti Shastrani Shagam Santi, it is a Rigveda. I think I don't know, by mistake it has come here. Or we have to check again. Some Swamiji, is it by or the who could be
Both it's Samaveda. So
I told Rigveda, right?
yeah.
Rigveda mantra without this swara are called the Shastra, but we have to check that. Maybe it's okay. So the last portion is Omitif Brahmana, this Brahmana, this Upasaka, Brahmana means Upasaka, anybody. He wants to learn this Veda, first the chanting and then the, of course, meaning. How does he start? Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om is used everywhere. Om is a versatile mantra. Upasana is used, inquiry it is used, rituals it is used, Veda Purva Bhaga, Vedanta Bhaga. Om is a versatile mantra. Right? Alambanam, support we use for meditation. Kathopanishad Yama says that Etad Alambanam Shreshtam, the best support. Etad Alambanam Param, the highest support we use, support. Etad Alambanam Gnatva, if you know this entirely nicely, properly, Gnatva, Alambanam only, because Abhidhana and Abhideya are not different. Abhideya means to be know the Brahman. Abhidhana, the name, is Om. It is representing Brahman. So etad alambanam gnatva, if you know it, Brahmaloke mahiyase. Brahmaloke means you are there, you are the Brahman. That's from Kathopanishad. Alambanam. Shrestha alambanam. Any questions? So this student also, Upapnavani, he reaches that pravakshan. He wants to carry himself towards Paramatma. That's Upapnavani. May I obtain, it is there here. So Upapnoti, he obtains. He wants to carry himself. That Vahati. Pravakshan, intention to carry himself. Prapnuyam, Grahishyami. He catches hold of that highest Brahman by his upasana. Even the students use to start their studies. So Om, so the glorification of Om, basically. Got it? Questions? All good? Okay, Krishna. Let's go for the Anuvaka 9. some values, ethical principles and practices is what is given here. Okay. Because this is a preparatory portion before the Jnana. So all these values, some practices, the Karma Yoga part is given here. Ritancha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Swadhyaya pravachane cha. Ritancha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
satyancha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Satyancha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Satyancha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
tapascha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Tapascha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Tapascha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
damascha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Damascha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Damascha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
shamascha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Shamascha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Shamascha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
agnayascha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Nayascha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Agnayascha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
agnihotrancha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Nihotrancha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Agnihotrancha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
atithayascha swadhyaya pravachane cha atitha atithayascha
Atithayascha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Atithayascha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
vanushancha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Manushancha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Manushancha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
praja cha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Prajacha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Prajacha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
prajanascha swadhyaya pravachane cha
Prajanascha swadhyaya pravachane cha. Prajanascha swadhyaya pravachane cha.
prajatischa swadhyaya pravachane cha
Prajatischa swadhyaya pravachane cha. Prajatischa swadhyaya pravachane cha.
satyamiti satyavacharathitaraha
Satyamiti satyavacharathitaraha. Satyamiti satyavacharathitaraha.
tapa iti tapo nityah paurushishtih
Tapa iti tapo nityah paurushishtih.
sorry tapa iti tapo nityah paurushishtih
Tapa iti tapo nityah paurushishtih. Tapa iti tapo nityah paurushishtih.
swadhyaya pravachane eveti nako maudgalya
Swadhyaya प्रवचने
After pravachane, pause. स्वाध्याय प्रवचने एवेति नाको मौद्गल्यः.
स्वाध्याय प्रवचने एवेति नाको मौद्गल्यः स्वाध्याय प्रवचने एवेति नाको मौद्गल्यः
तद्धितपस्तद्धितपः
तद्धितपस्तद्धितपः तद्धितपस्तद्धितपः
together. ऋतञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च सत्यञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च तपश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च धमश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च शमश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च अग्नयश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च अग्निहोत्रञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च अतिथयश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च मानुषञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च प्रजा च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च प्रजनश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च प्रजातिश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च सत्यमिति सत्यवचाराधीतरः तप इति तपो नित्यः पौरुषिष्टिः स्वाध्याय प्रवचने एवेति नाको मौद्गल्यः तद्धितपस्तद्धितपः. Krishna, you want to chant?
ऋतञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च सत्यञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च तपश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च दमश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च शमश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च अग्नयश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च अग्निहोत्रञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च अतिथयश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च मानुषञ्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च प्रजा च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च प्रजनश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च प्रजातिश्च स्वाध्याय प्रवचने च सत्यमिति सत्यवचाराधितरः
राथीतरः
सत्यमिति सत्यवचाराधितरः
राथी तथ तथ थी.
राधीतरः
Yes.
सत्यमिति सत्यवचाराधीतरः सत्यमिति सत्यवचाराधीतरः तप इति तपो नित्यः पौरुषिष्टः
तिष्टिः
तपो इति
तपयति
तप इति तपो नित्यः पौरुषिष्टिः तप इति तपो नित्यः पौरुषिष्टिः स्वाध्याय प्रवचने एवेति नाको मौद्गल्यः तद्धितपस्तद्धितपः tapah
Tadhi tapastadhi
tadhi tapah tadhi tapah.
That itself is tapa. The the Veda itself, Upanishad itself is giving the verdict finally. The verdict means Swadhyaya and Pravachana itself is the greatest tapas because that is repeated, right? Swadhyaya Pravachane, for each and every value, right? That is repeated. Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Learning the scriptures, chanting, Pravachana, and then sharing it others. That is
Pravachana is
Swadhyaya is learning and chanting. Pravachana is, in this context, it is sharing with others. Pravachana in another context also could be learning, but here sharing, spreading the glory of the Vedas.
Swadhyaya is
learning.
Learning, chanting. Yes, Swadhyaya.
Pravachana is sharing.
Yes, Pravachana.
Then,
So that is repeated. See, because the importance it is giving, it is given. So in this context, it is highlighted basically. See, all values are important, but in this particular context, it is highlighting that value of Swadhyaya and Pravachana. So regular Parayanam and teaching others, basically, is Swadhyaya Pravachana. That's why it's called in the Vedo Nityam Adiyata. In Sadhana Panchakam, right? First verse, Vedo Nityam Adiyata, Taduditam Karma Svanashtiyata. Right? Do some reading. So Ritam, all these meanings, Ritam, earlier also we have seen in the Shanti Pada, Ritam, Satyam, right? And Tapa, Dama, Shama, we all know it. So it is 5 here from the Agnayascha, Agnihotrancha, Atitayascha, Manushancha, Praja, Prajanascha, Prajatischa. The famous, the well-known 5 yajnas, the Panchamaha yajnas we call, right, in Karma Yoga, are highlighted. Because the Devatas is the Swadhyaya Pravachana is called Brahma Yajna. Brahma Yajna. Chanting the Vedas, teaching, Parayan is Brahma Yajna. Then Agnayascha, Agnihotrancha, you can say Deva Yajna. Every day, of course, we do puja, right? Deva puja. Atitayascha is Manushya Yajna. And of course, Manushancha is Manushya Yajna. And Praja Prajanascha can be taken as Pitru Yajna. Even though Pitru is ancestors, because the lineage is maintained, it's called a Pitru in a way, right? Pitru Yajna. And of course, you can add the Bhuta Yajna also, which is the 5th one, Bhuta Yajna. So all these are highlighted.
Praja, Prajanascha, Praja.
Ischa.
What's the difference?
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's given.
In the saying children,
Children.
Praja is like taking care of children. Prajanascha is procreation, like
Mm.
giving birth, I think.
Yes.
And Prajatischa is like propagation.
Huh.
Is what is
Yeah.
Prajati actually is grandchildren. Propagation,
grandchildren.
yes, your lineage.
Lineage.
Basically,
Praja.
this is also taken as a sadhana because you are preparing for the highest and then being in a grihastha ashrama, you have to take care of all this. As a sadhana only, basically. Sadhanatva pradarshanaartham. So this karma yoga is a contributory role along with the upasanas already mentioned. So this is the karma yoga part. Right. Of course, will come in the last portion also is karma yoga part. In between, of course, there is a The Aham Vrukshasareriva is the Brahmajnana mantra. If they want to, those who want to, the next one, that is small. I thought we'll do that also today. It's okay. Let's do that again. If you want to accelerate the spiritual journey, being in the Grihastha, but japa, even though it's the highest jnanam is given here, but it is not japa only. This Aham Vrukshasareriva, japartham only. So that we are chitta shuddhi. Later, the meaning is established in that Jnana Nishta, but before the come to Jnana, it is given as a japa for japa, purposes of repetition, so that you are preparing yourself. The practice of what is right and proper as fixed by the scriptural texts is to be done. Right and proper means the rhythm and satyam, right? Earlier we have seen that also. What is right, and according to what you have learned, you practice what is proper, that is satyam. Satyam can be just verbal discipline, but here in this context, it can take that meaning. As fixed by the scriptural texts is to be done along with the reading the texts, because Swadhyaya Pravachana is repeated, right? Along with reading the texts oneself and propagating the truths of the same, Pravachanam. Got it? You see where I'm reading? The meaning only, the first meaning. Truth, meaning practicing in life what is understood to be right and proper, is to be pursued along with regular studies and preaching. Penance, that is tapa, study and preaching, repeated. That is the right. Keeps on repeating that same thing, because the highlight is the swadhyaya and pravachana. Control of the senses. I'll skip the study and preaching. Control of the senses, which is called tattva dhamma. Dhamma, dhamma, dhamascha swadhyaya. Control of the senses. Tranquility is the shama, right? Antarindriya nigraham is shama, tranquility. The maintenance of fire, what is it? Agnihotra, right? Agnihotra. Maintenance of, because nowadays nobody is doing, because we are supposed to every day do Agnihotra. But here, the early morning, if you put a deepam, that is equivalent to that nowadays. Okay. So deepam is important. Study, tranquility, study, preaching, study and preaching. Maintenance of fire, offering of oblations, study and preaching. Oblations and fire sacrifice, serving the guests. Is it Atiti? Atitayascha. Study and preaching, of course. And the performance of duties towards man, manushancha. Study and preaching. Duties towards children, praja. Study and preaching the Vedas. Procreation, prajanascha. Study and preaching. Propagation of the race, study and preaching. All these are things to be practiced sincerely. Satyavacha, son of Ratitara, holds that truth alone is to be strictly practiced. So, as though Upanishad is giving some three rishis are talking, right, discussing, deliberating as which one is the highest truth, which one is to be taken as the highest, the best. So, Satyavacha, son of Ratitara, that is Satyavat, holds that truth, Satyam alone is to be practiced. But Taponitya, son of Paurushishti, Paurushishta, declares that penance, that is tapas alone, is to be practiced. Then finally comes Naka, Nako Maudgalya, you're saying, son of Mudgala, holds the view that the study and preaching of the Vedas alone is to be practiced. That verily is Taditapaha, we are saying, right? That alone is tapa, that alone is tapa. That is the verdict of the Upanishad. Upanishad is also saying, yes, that alone is his stamp of approval on the last one, on the Naka, the Modgalya, where he's saying the Swadhyaya and Pravachana alone is to be given highest importance. But it's highlighted. Not that you should give up the Satyam that is highlighted basically in this context. Adarardham, natu nindartham. Not to give, natu anya nindartham. Contextually, this one is highlighted in this particular. In other texts, maybe in other Upanishads, something else is highlighted. Okay.
Like Guru Shishta and Buddha, all these are just made up
Names.
made up.
Made up or could be real. Right?
No, as if
We
it's
can't say
giving
made up.
real,
This is
because
Veda
they're
is
saying Naka is like they're giving real
names. Yeah, could be names. This portion represents the last concluding lecture given by the teacher to the students in their classroom. This almost represents the corresponding function that we have in our modern colleges, which goes by the term valedictory address. The students are told some main ideas as to how they should live, dedicated to their culture and consistent with what has been taught to them as the goal and the way of life. Continue, Krishnan. Careful analysis. You're on mute.
A careful analysis of the ideas here and a diligent inquiry into them clearly gives us an insight into the special trait in our ancient generation, which caused the whole world to stand aghast, lost in admiration and respect to the spiritual India. No doubt the glory of India could not have been because of the new prophets or
Few prophets.
because of a few prophets or a handful of saints and sages, however great and divine they might have been. The admiration that historical figures could invoke in their limited lifetime could not be a sufficient theme to create the amount of awe at and reverence for India, which the distant people of the world are paying even today. From this portion, it is clear that the present world's tribute to the glory that was India is not the adoration paid to a declared prophet or to some unknown saints, not to a philosophy or a science. It is a tribute paid to the generation that lived the enduring values of life in society, spreading more and more peace and tranquility among men. It is not the compelling glory of some rare beings, mighty in their own perfection, glorious in their words, but it is the loving reverence that an age feels towards the past generation that knew how to live the right values of life and bring the entire generation to enjoy a greater quota of intellectual poise, mental stability, physical health, social happiness, and communal growth and national well-being. In order to create such a consummate scheme of things around and about us among a people, it must be the duty of the educationalists to see that they impart to the growing generation not merely some factual knowledge or some wondrous theories, but also instill into the growing generation's ideals of pure living and train the children to live those ideals in their individual life. In short, the secret of our glory is crystallized in this valedictory address that we will find that, and we will find that this portion is more exhaustively amplified in the following section.
And the following section means the one after that. There's one in between. The last one, Shishyanushasanam.
In this section, we find that 12 immortal ideas of living rules of conduct are given. And on an equal number of times, it has been insisted that The student should continue his study of scriptures and propagation of these immortal ideas of his glorious culture among the people all through his life. To believe that the Hindus are not missionary in their zeal for the propagation of their ideas in the world is not to understand at all the spirit of Hinduism. The rishis themselves dedicated their entire life in spreading this culture, and the entire educated community was commissioned to serve as preachers in the society. Earlier also we found that the teacher and the taught practiced ritualism to invoke the grace of the Lord, demanding of him infinite wealth for purposes of opening universities and maintaining the same. Here in the valedictory address, the teacher addressing the students in the final class of the last day of the regular meetings emphasizes the need for continuing their studies till their death and making it a moral obligation on themselves to continually preach the contents of the scriptures.
Scriptures. Sunita ji got it. So that is why that is being repeated. Swadhyaya Pravachana.
This glorious earth for a studious
Studious life.
life, rippling with
Bristling.
bristling
Hmm.
with the missionary zeal left us somewhere in the past. And from that cursed time onwards, the Hindu
Decadence.
has started its pernicious decay. The educated Brahmanas learned to misinterpret these words and arrogate to themselves a monopoly of knowledge. They viciously traded upon the cultural heritage of their noble land, mainly guided by a misjudgment and mostly encouraged by the vicious charms of power and ambition. They felt it convenient to withdraw knowledge from the majority and share it among themselves. Thus, they created an exclusive class of intelligentsia, blessed with special knowledge and therefore with special patronage from the state. This sad decadence, initiated then, came to roar its threats in the days of Buddha. By this time, this
The sapless.
Ritualistic excesses had made ugly gashes.
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 Yeah. On the serene
this
face.
serene
face of Mother India.
Mother India. Buddha, a true son of this culture, rose in revolt at the existing imperfections and launched his campaign against it. Sadly enough, his followers misunderstood the message of the prophet of peace and misguided the generation. To retrieve the age back to the Sanatana Dharma, Shankaracharya came and emphasized the essence of our religion in a language which that generation could understand then.
Continue.
Reading the works of philosophers and the Bibles of prophets without reference to their times confuses every later generation, and this tragedy happened to a large extent to the students of Shankaracharya also. Thus, in slavery to words, we missed altogether their import and forgot to make restatements of the truth in the context of our time. In these days, when Hinduism has sunk into the
lowest ebb
of its
decadence,
foreign ideas and ideologies are very systematically infiltrated into this country and taking hold of the people. These tragic ulcers are sure to end the individualistic glory of the Hindu culture. if we don't bring into the generation and the society the true vitality of the truth of Upanishad with an urgency which the situation demands, unavoidable indeed is the Hindu disaster.
Let's finish 5 more minutes. This last, continue.
Our present idea that the spread of our culture and free discussions on the scriptures is the special right of a few and that it should be addressed to only a few specially selected individuals is an absurd notion which does not have the sanction of the rishis, especially in our India. However, we find that the brilliant students are repeatedly commissioned to continue their study and to be preachers all their lifetime. The style of Upanishad is itself brevity. Even a syllable more than the minimum required is considered as a great sin, and yet here we find in a small little section 12 repetitions of the same idea. Study and discourse upon the Vedas, Swadhyaya and Pravachanam, with a view to make others understand and appreciate our culture.
That is called Punarukti Dosha. Great sin means, I mean, because it is repeated, right? No, Punarukti Dosha they call it. But then that is allowed because to highlight something. Continue.
For this missionary work, the Hindu rishis never saw any necessity for organizing a special class of teachers, but it was made a duty of every householder. In the pursuit of his vocation, the householder was not asked to spare any special time or to sacrifice his duties either towards himself or his own children, or to the society, or to the nation, or to the world. But while emphasizing the need for pursuing his duties on all these levels, he is asked to keep continuously in touch with the scriptures and to preach the same truth to others, both by his words and his actions. The great qualities that have been insisted are rhythm, the practice of what is right and proper as indicated in the scriptures. Satyam, living up to the ideals that have been intellectually comprehended during their studies. Tapas, spirit of self-sacrifice and self-denial. Dhamma, control of senses. Shama, tranquility of the mind. Agni, maintenance of a charitable and ready kitchen at home in the seva of all deserving hungry fellow beings. Sacred fires of 3 kinds, that is,
Garhapatya, Ahavaniya,
Dakshina. Practice of concentration and ritualism through fire worship as was in vogue in the society in those days.
because the Grihapati only, the head. Pati means the head. So that has to be continuously maintained. In fact, that is used for the final rites also for the person, right? And then from that only Avahaniya and Dakshina they do.
One's duty towards humanity, towards children, towards grandchildren, and towards the society. In the close of the section, 3 great masters have been quoted. They had in the past declared the most important of the above qualities, the unavoidable quality to be cultivated according to each is either satyam or tapas or study of shastras and its efficient spread in the society. Swadhyaya Pravachanam. In short, this section as though a manifesto of the Hindu way of living in which every Hindu, striving to live up to his or her sacred culture, is charged to live true to his or her own intellectual conviction, Satyam, in a spirit of self-denial, tapas, in the study of his sacred Bible, Swadhyaya, and spread his culture among the people of the world, Pravachanam.
What is tapas? spirit of self.
So anything tapas, even just upavasam could be a tapas. Some anything that you self-denial, even, right? Many people do many things for the sake of tapas. Going on a arduous journey, a pilgrimage, would be tapas. Take that up. I mean, the basic one, upavasa. Tapas. Okay, so that we finished that. Next one is a small section where you're saying, I am the Jagat Karanam, I am the Karanam Brahma, I am no less, I am not a small mortal individual which I am thinking, but I am the Tattvamasi basically. I am that Brahman, I'm saying. So that will be used as a japa. Only 5 lines. Aham vrikshasareriva, kirtiprishtangireriva, urdhvapaitro vajini smrdamasmi, draminagam savarchasam, sumedha amritokshitaha. The last one is iti trishankor vedan. Trishankur Rishi has given that. Iti. So if the daily you are asked to do japa of that, you'll see the meaning. Nice. That's called Pankti Chandas. 5 padas are there, right? Earlier we were seeing Pankti, Panktam. So these 5 padas are there. In Aham Vrikshasya Reriva. 5. That iti Trishankor Vedan Vachanam is not considered. So if you are doing japa, you have to remember the Rishi, the Chandas, and the Devata, that we'll see. So that Pankti Chandas is what is used there. Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om Tat Sat.